Hiya. So on this video, I just want to cover off a bit about HMOs and who we rent to and how we rent to them, really, because you can get yourselves in tricky water if you don't do it by the book. And you should be doing it by the book because that's how you end up with a good, long, stable business. So I just wanted to cover off the do's and don'ts and things that we do, and obviously that you have to do, depending on the size of obviously the property. So first and foremost, the HMO license. So if it's rented to 5 or more people within the one household, you do need a license. At the minute, anything less than that, so if it's 4 bedrooms or 4 people, then you don't need a license. But that will more than likely change in the future. So we need that is the main criteria, and you've got to make sure that you get your license. You get your license from the local authority. And obviously you need to check whether the property is in an Article 4 area, because that could prevent you getting a license and therefore being able to run it as a HMO. Property in an Article 4 area, basically they put that in place to ease the amount of HMOs going into one area, because certain areas do become quite overpopulated with HMOs, and obviously they try and keep the areas limited, make sure that the residential neighbours etc. aren't being impacted too much by loads of HMOs springing up. So that's kind of where Article 4 comes from. If you are in an Article 4 area, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't have a HMO there, but there will be a lot more. You've got to go through planning approval basically, and they might say you need to build a drive, or next door neighbour's got a HMO, so you can't have a HMO. Each authority is different, each street's different, so you'll have to, as you say, you've got to go through your planning, and you've got to go through see if it gets accepted, and then if it does, great. However, there are a lot of areas that aren't in Article 4 areas that work well for HMOs. So for me, that would be a good starting point. Rather than having to pay the extra fees to get into those areas. You have minimum room sizes, so the floor area for a one person cannot be anything less than 1.5 square meters, and that is for someone over 10. You'll see here it drops down to 4.64 square meters for somebody under 10-year-old. The floor area in any room when it's sleeping 2 people has to be 10.2. And any room in the HMO with a floor area of less than 4 square meters is not to be used as a sleeping accommodation. So again, you need to measure your room sizes and make sure that when you are looking at your properties and your potential deals, that you are checking the room sizes out. So I've got quite a cool app on my phone that I have used, which just pings the walls and then does it for you. When it comes on to management, a lot of this is kind of common sense, but there's quite a lot of people who don't do it. So you've got to provide the contact details in a communal area in the house. So most HMOs will have a cork board put up on the wall, or somewhere in the house, some laminated documents which clearly details that whoever's running them, which is more than likely going to be yourself, what the fire escape policy is, and sort of the routes, that you maintain the water supply and the drainage. Annual gas safety checks, once they're done, they need to be pinned on the boards. And I always think it's a good idea to email a copy to all the tenants individually as well. Obviously, you maintain it, and all the furniture comes on this later on, but is fire safe as well. And that you provide adequate storage and collection of the waste, which again is sounds like common sense, but a lot of these things don't get done, and it can get you into trouble. It can cause issues when you're trying to serve Section 8 or Section 21s. So just get it right from the start, and if you put a process in place, which again I'll show you how we do using the Asana, it keeps you on track. So HMO gas safety regulations, obviously you need to do your annual gas safety check, which will create a CP12 document, and that is the document that you then need to pin on the board. And as I said, I would email it to all the tenants as well. Fire safety regulations, so you've got to make sure that everything is fire safe. Any furniture that you're putting in there must be tagged as usable. And don't get caught by buying a cheap mattress from somewhere and it not having the right fire protection. You've got to install fire doors. You've got to have fire blankets and fire extinguishers, and they've got to be readily available and in accessible areas. You've got to have the right type of door handles and locks. So thumb turn locks seem to be the most popular. They prevent any getting stuck in and having to go find a key to get out, or obviously when in an emergency you've got to get out there quickly. So obviously you've got to install your alarms. Now, depending on the size of the building, depends on what type of system you need. So if it's 1 or 2 stories with individual floor area, no more than 200 square meters, you need a mains powered interconnected smoke alarms. There'll be guidelines apply. The good thing about HMOs is every authority has their own officer, and it's quite easy to get their email address, and most of them are actually really helpful. So you could, if you've got any questions and you want to just double check if something fits, you can ping them a message, and they will normally respond to you quite quickly. For any fire stuff, you can always get your local fire brigade to come out, and they will do an assessment for you. It might cost you a couple £100, but they'll tell you exactly what you need, and it just makes sure that you're doing it all properly. Obviously, if it's 3 stories or higher, you need a fire alarm with a central panel system, and again, CO2 alarms in all the high risk rooms. So it says there, it's crucial to check your HMO local. And I agree with that. Reach out to them, have a conversation with them. They'll point you in the right direction. They're there to help, not hinder. Furniture, I kind of touched on that. So, make sure that it complies with the fire safety regulations. Fitness for human habilitation. This is all pretty much common sense, but I do want to bring you onto this natural light, because obviously a lot of people do look at sort of taking 3, 4, 5 bedroom houses, and they might have 2 rooms, living rooms, so they think, I'll convert one into a bedroom. If it hasn't got any natural light, you cannot convert it into a bedroom. Obviously the rest of it free from damp, water supply, all that sort of stuff is just general common sense. And if you weren't doing that, then you wouldn't probably keep your tenants that long. But just be careful if you have got a conversion in mind, you can get that natural light into the room to be able to comply. Again, repairs and maintenance, fairly common sense. You've got to keep these places up to standard, and I think the standard's getting, better and better and better. So you've got to keep your game up. You need an EICR certificate. So every electrical installation, it needs to be verified, and you need your certificate. Again, I would supply this to the tenants as part of their pack, and make sure that they're inspected within the right timeframes as well. Plugs and sockets, and one thing that I haven't touched on as well is your appliances. Get them pat tested. They all need pat testing, and you've got to get that done every 5 years for any new items. So as soon as you put something in new, get them pat tested, and if anything else goes in new, they need to be pat tested. A bit like also, if tenants want to put certain things in as well, that might be, fall under this, they'll have to get them pat tested as well, and you've got to keep on top of that. Taxation, again, that's how you set up, so I'm not going to cover that in here. GDPR, once you start taking tenants' information, you need to be able to tell them how you're going to deal with the information. So you need a privacy policy statement that you do send to the tenant, and obviously they then have the ability to opt in or opt out of that. ICO, you've got to be registered with them, because you are going to be collecting data, i.e. the tenant's name, the tenant's email address, all that sort of stuff. You must check that the tenant has the right to rent in our country. Obviously, you do this by proof of ID of citizenship and any visas, but that can get you into a lot of tricky water and some big fines if you don't do it properly. You must supply the tenant, every tenant when they move in, with a how to rent guide. They're free. You just print the PDF off and email it over to the tenant. And obviously now you're not allowed to charge any fees for rent checks, or we do rent profile we use to check if a tenant's viable or not, check the credit history is okay, that sort of stuff. You used to be able to pass those fees on. Obviously now you can't. So these are the only things that you can charge a fee for, under the permitted fees or the Permitted Payments Act. Deregulation, don't need to cover that off here. And obviously the tenant, does have a right to complain about HMO landlords. if you think you're not doing your job properly. But if you don't do your job properly, you're not going to have a business. So hopefully that wouldn't be anybody here. Section 21 and Section 8 is how you then get rid of a bad tenant, but I'm going to cover that off in a total separate video. So that's the sort of legalities of HMOs. What we do is in Asana, we have, so each tenant submits this form to us when they want to apply for a tenancy. So as you can see, I've kind of pre-populated one. This drops into our Asana and it gets assigned to a team member to then take it through the process. We then just have the boxes. So identification received, check complete, that refers to the rent profile check. So we use that to, I think it's £15 or something to check a tenant. And we get a report back. What I then do is upload all the documents into here. So all documents are uploaded into the tenancies, in the tenant profile card. So we've got them there if we ever need to revert back to them. Contract signed, again, uploaded. Deposit received, yes. Itinerary signed, yes, again, uploaded. Gas, water, and electric meter readings. So this is more for your single tenants, but what the meter readings were before they took over. Is the deposit protected? Obviously, you need to put it within the scheme within 30 days. Start date of the tenancy, contract term, 12 months, 24 months, whatever it might be. Gas safety certificate supplied. Yep. EPC certificate provided. EPCs you don't have to do for a HMO because obviously you're paying the bills. But for a single tenancy, you do. If you don't provide an EPC certificate, you cannot serve a Section 21 notice. So, it's important that you get the documentation right, and it doesn't take too much time and money. How to rent guide provided. CO2 alarms tested before every tenant moves in. Yes. Fire alarms tested before every tenant moves in. Yes, we make that good practice. And then once the deposit is protected in the scheme, you'll get a certificate. Provide that to the tenant. GDPR privacy notice provided to the tenant, and then obviously we've got them if unfortunately we have to serve a Section 21 or Section 8, we bang them in there. So that kind of ensures that we follow the process, make sure we don't cut any corners, or not so much cut corners, but sometimes it's easy to forget one of those documents, and every time that we get them signed back, they come back into this system. And they've uploaded against the tenant's profile, and then that just sits in their profile until they check out. So that's kind of how we do it and how we use software to do it. And hopefully that helps. Cheers.